another label, and they told me flat out, you know, that it was because he was white. You know, we had this label, Warner Brothers was looking at him or something like that, and it's because he was white that he didn't get signed.
And here you have this white kid thrusting himself into the middle of the scene with kids his age is really going to be a target. I mean, a white guy with a mic at a hip-hop show is going to be a target anyway, and history's proven that, you know, the history of white rappers has proven that they should be.
The white ethnicity that proved to be such a hurdle for the young rapper ironically became an asset after he was signed.
Once he was able to punch through, it becomes maybe his greatest advantage. The white suburban kids who buy a lot of music out there, who have these disposable incomes, they immediately identify with him because he looks like them. They look in the mirror and they see Eminem. He's marketable, you know. MTV puts him out there, and he becomes an icon for them.
Eminem himself said, you know, do the math. If I was black, I wouldn't have sold anything like as much. You know, he's said that himself. I mean, he's very shrewd and aware about that. But Eminem isn't a Vanilla Ice. It isn't just somebody that's kind of cynically and slickly appropriated all the kind of tropes and idioms of hip-hop to his own advantage.
It is just about impossible, not just in this society, but anywhere in the white world, most certainly including Europe, for a person of African heritage to achieve the same kind of credibility with the broadest audience as a white person can, because at some level, every part of the white audience is aware of race, and a portion of the audience is really alienated by race. Even if they're fans, they're alienated by it. That's not Eminem's fault. That's not saying that white people, therefore, should not use what artistic materials are in the air as best they can.
But the thing is, about much as Jimi Hendrix, he brought to rock music something that no white rock star, whether it's Clapton or Townsend, he brought something in terms of his background and his heritage and his experience. He brought something none of them could ever have done. You know, rock is essentially a white medium, but as a black man, he was able to bring something to it, as it were, from the outside. Eminem does something similar in hip hop, and I think it's this. He is able. A lot of hip-hop is about braggadocio, it's about fantasy, it's about I'm a man, and it's about, you know, medallions and chains and success stories and dissing the weak and inferior. Now, I think that's something to do, that's a reaction to the African-American experience, where weakness, and the idea of weakness and poverty and things like that, are things that it's almost too much to want to admit to in that context. And obviously the braggadocio and the kind of the gold medallions and the chains is a kind of way of like almost overcompensating for the kind of rather humiliating inheritance that sort of racism has left with black people. You know, that they've been, as it were, as a critic Simon Reynolds said, they've been kind of unmanned by that, and I think that's why there is this strong emphasis on machismo. Eminem isn't black, and I think that what he does have, even though he's core is a sort of white, maybe some sort of cultural white capacity, which is slightly dangerous ground, but I think there's something in it that, for self-deprecation, for admitting to kind of weakness and vulnerability, because I think that's a really, really key strand in Eminem's work. Although you have all the kind of self-aggrandizing nonsense, there's a kind of sense that it's nonsense, and there's always, he never strays very far from the idea of his own sort of powerlessness, his own dysfunction, his own background. I think that that is perhaps one of the most significant things that he brings to hip-hop that you're not necessarily going to get from, say, a 50 Cent.
Eminem has also been the target of inflamed criticism from various feminist groups, particularly surrounding his song Kim.
Eminem has been criticized for a lot of things, for his comments about gays, for his comments about women, for his comments about drug abuse, violence, and I guess turning young people against their parents and authority and what have you. But perhaps the front where he's most vulnerable is the misogyny front. The women in his music do not come out very well. Mom is a junkie who he rapes. Girlfriend, wife is a controlling shrew who he kills and sticks in the trunk and throws in the lake while his little daughter laughs. Girls at parties are attacked by him, drugged and taken advantage of. You know, does he really feel that way about women? I mean, his mother's still alive. His wife is still alive, and he certainly cares a lot about his daughter.
It is a character. He's pretty clear about it. He even balances it out with songs to his daughter, you know, that are these tender things. Personally, I think that's what probably disturbed, you know, it's like the Tipper Gores of the world even more. You know, they ignored all that stuff, but if they really thought about the psychology there, they might have a hard time sleeping at night. It's like, here's someone who's tender, has a tender song about his daughter, and then has a tender song, almost a tender love ballad about killing her mom. You know, what kind of country are they ruling?
I mean, you know, all kinds of feminist groups and guardians of the public weal came out against Kim. Kim is, without any question, the most controversial of all of his songs. I just listened to it this morning. It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. It's about rage. It's about how crazy it is to feel that way. There isn't any question about it. And there are so many signals in the course of the song, as well as in the way he presents himself publicly and on the rest of the album, that not least among them the fact that Kim still lives and that he still writes songs on the last record about how he can't stand her and wants her to die, and about how he can't live without her and loves her. People who, his fans, they understand that this is not advocacy or representation, that it is a fantasy. They understand that. You cannot spend your life not offending or adversely affecting someone if you are involved in public creation. That is not an appropriate way to think. If you're aware, as Eminem is, that you have a lot of impressionable fans, and that some of them may in fact be misled or somehow degraded or perverted by what it is you do, then it's a good idea for you to take that into your presentation. You're a better artist if you figure out some way to account for that fact. And there is no one in hip-hop who has done more to account for that fact than Eminem.
The superstar has often been accused of advocating homophobic prejudice. On this front, however, Eminem appears to be trying to put the record straight.
I think it's hard for any of us to know what Eminem's views on homosexuality are, but I do think that he's been stung by the criticism. I do think that his appearances with Elton John and some of the other things he's done, the role in the movie, are meant to soften his image a little bit, because I think one of the things that he really struggles with is at the same time he realizes this vile, slim, shady persona is what has got him where he is today. He feels a need to apologize for that too, because it's always that interplay of shocking us and then saying, but don't, that's not really me. Shocking us and then saying, well, don't think that's what I'm really like. And when you're trying to figure out which is the shock and which is the backpedaling, I think it's really hard to know where he feels. But clearly, I think there's been a strong indication that he doesn't want people to see him as a hateful person.
After the release of the Marshall Mathers LP, Hollywood producer Brian Grazer approached Eminem about a film project. The resulting collaboration would eventually produce one of the most successful films of 2002.
8 Mile, on the face of it, follows a very familiar Hollywood trajectory. and it feels like a kind of feel-good film. It's like triumph against the odds. And at the end of it is very interesting because he walks away, he's won the rap contest, that's his big triumph, and because it sort of accords so closely with his own story, you assume that then follow the sequence of events that lead to his global celebrity. But I think that perhaps what you could also think is that what he's really sort of attained there is some sense of vindication, but also integrity, and perhaps he walks away and perhaps